Hey, what's up? Back at you with another video. So, I was about to hop on, and I am hopping onto this video. We're going to be watching a video by Daily Maverick, and the thumbnail says, "Follow the money," and it's got some white men there, and it says, "Here's what these anti-South African US politicians have in common." And so here I think the Daily Maverick is trying to give me clues about the people that I've been following, what I've been sincerely noting as a citizen of this country. There have been unusual sudden attacks. I've been on YouTube for quite a long time. Suddenly, I started seeing with the Trump administration, there being now YouTube channels and people who are just dumping on South Africa, threatening sanctions. You know, it's not a secret. At this point, it's very well known who the right-wingers are. And particularly this being very related to the USA, we've got an American in the midst of these things. And that is Colonel Chris Wyatt. And in the previous documentary, investigative documentary by the Daily Maverick, they did actually point towards Colonel Chris Wyatt when the AfriForum went to go lobby for sanctions towards South Africa or sanctions to South African ANC politicians. You all know Joel Pollak. He's being suggested to be the ambassador of the United States in South Africa. And he's a journalist. Can you hear that? Imagine the implication of sending a megaphone, a newspaper, a spinner to come and be ambassador. Do you know how happy Renaldo Gouws would be to have this guy living in Cape Town, to be in the block? Do you know how Byron Shepherd from Morning Coffee would be so happy to be sitting alongside the guy from Breitbart? Is that the newspaper that he runs? Yeah, that. Let's keep going. That's who they met with. See, they're now providing pictures of who they met with, and it's a friend in the media.
Other than a video posted by Jaco Kleinhans of him being interviewed by a right-wing podcaster in a Starbucks.
Do you see who that is? That's the Easter egg. I told you. That's Colonel Chris Wyatt over there. They met with Joel Pollak and they met with Colonel Chris Wyatt. There he is. And Daily Maverick is calling him a right-wing podcaster. So following those two episodes, you can see that they've spoken about the locals who have gone there with the propaganda and those who have met them on the other side. And so before we get into that though, we will get into that. I see that Renaldo Gouws has released a video and it's called "Popular News Anchor Has a History of Assaulting Women." And that is Aldrin Sampear of Newsroom Africa. And there's also a hashtag road rage there. So we're gonna be looking at that. First, seeing what Renaldo is about, because Katlego, I saw in a video that she posted, I watched it, just didn't react to it. She finally has gone after Clement Manyathela, as I had anticipated that they would. After the singing of the song "Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer" and the subsequent interviews done by Clement Manyathela, those who are pro-black, pro-singing the song, would have found those interviews to be incredibly delightful because of how he carried them. He carried them in a pro-black way. And I knew that these guys would soon start to fetch journalists, the ones whose faces are showing up. And so, having fetched Clement Manyathela, Aldrin Sampear is being brought into the mix. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this new left versus right world. Let's hear what Renaldo has to say. We're bringing him at 1.2x speed, 1.3x.
Hey, what's up guys, it's Renaldo here. So this video is going to focus on Newsroom Africa's anchor Aldrin Sampear, who has something's not right here. Let's set the mood. There we go. Let's try this. Okay. Okay. Newsroom Africa anchor and former Power 98.7 FM broadcaster Aldrin Sampear finally responded late Thursday night following an alleged road rage incident earlier in the day. The purported victim, a 20-year-old woman, laid charges of assault against the presenter. However, Sampear alleged that the video she made of the incident was edited. "I can confirm that I was involved in a minor accident this afternoon," he said. He continues, "It happened after a driver tried to cut in front of me when the taxi ahead of them stopped. There was an exchange of words from both parties when we were stationary. I'm horrified to see an edited version of the video because I actually went to my car to go and fetch my phone and license to share with the driver. At no point did I assault the driver. We have exchanged details. I've reported the matter to the police and my legal team will deal with this factually and honestly, Sampear continued.
Why did he put on those glasses and read that with a gay tone? He did that. And he kind of postured himself different. These streets that we live upon, these streets. Let's listen.
Yeah, I can't do that, sorry. All right, so in a nutshell, he is saying that there was no assault and that it was all dealt with cordially. But then the video came out.
Why did you do what you did?
Why are you hitting me?
Why did you do what you did?
You
Why
did
did you do what you did?
You did it.
Why did you give me the middle
Look
finger?
at
What was the middle finger?
That is assault right there, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go back.
What was the middle finger?
There's
Middle finger.
assault.
hitting
What
me.
was the middle? Where
Stop
did you-
hitting me.
where
Why are
did
you hitting me?
Where did you? Why did
Stop.
you give me that middle finger?
I'm gonna call
Why
the
did you give
police.
me
I'm gonna call the police.
police, whatever you
Stop.
want.
Why are you
give me
hitting
that
me?
middle finger? Huh?
Why are you hitting me? Why are you hitting
Huh?
me?
Are you mad?
You're hitting to me. Look. Look at this. Look.
You can see that is him driving into her to probably teach her a lesson. And if you look at the way the car just swerved in front of her, you can clearly see that he tried to put her under pressure. Because if you look at the car and the way that look at that, he cut in front of her because of his road rage. But let's just go back and see in actual fact how he assaulted her, because it's quite clear that he did it. So here we go.
Do what you did.
You did it.
Why did you give me the middle
Look
finger?
at
What was the middle
There we
finger?
go. He pushed her. Unacceptable. That is assault through and through. So, ladies and gentlemen, Aldrin Sampear, the one that is very vocal and always has negative things to say about people, like myself, like Kali Kriel, like Adams Roots, like AfriForum, like Solidariteit, like the DA, various different political parties. He always acts like he is the judge, the jury, and the executioner. I remember that during my tirade of things that happened to me, he also was very vocal in how could a video be edited? How could this and that be done? And here he is exactly proclaiming the same thing. So I find it a little bit hypocritical for him to now play the same game, even though mine was true, but yet in the video you can clearly see that he did assault that lady. So it goes on. Sampear said there's
But is that the full video? Let's read his claim then.
some truth to the story. When contacted by the citizen, Sampear denied that he assaulted Augusto, but admitted that there was some truth to other aspects of the incident. He blatantly lied because you can see on the video that he actually pushed her and tried to slap the camera out of her hand. He then asked the citizen to call back. On the second call, Sampear asked for further questions in writing. At the time of publishing, Sampear had not responded to the questions. The story will be updated once he responds. I'm assuming that happened because he realized that there's a video and it's doing the rounds. 5 years ago, Sampear admitted in the media that he had assaulted women before. He chalked it up to being provoked at the time, but claimed he had since outgrown that behavior. Apparently not. Let's go to this article. So Aldrin is spelled wrong, so it's actually Aldrin. Further revealed that he had also physically abused two of his former partners. The host explains why he abused his first victim, a former girlfriend named Valentine, while he was in his teens. Valentine really pissed me off that day.
Is it Valentine? What's wrong with you? And I was going to ask the question, wasn't he provoked? Didn't that lady give a middle finger? Truly speaking, what business do women have pulling middle fingers at men? We really need a society that respects men. Women should respect men. Men are dangerous. Ladies, men are dangerous. Don't you all watch animal documentaries? Don't you know how a blessing it is to be living with men who are civil, who don't harm you, who don't pursue you? And that blessing, that state of peace, is one that now allows women to provoke the kind of aggression that men are saving women from, as we endeavor to treat them with respect. And we should, in a civilized world, we should love them and protect them. But I'm saying a man's protection for a woman is his danger. Have you seen animals? Animals have weapons installed on their faces. Males have the largest weapons installed on their faces. So men are dangerous, but we love and we protect women in our society to the best of our ability, those of us who do. There's a quote that says, "It helps nothing for a man to be harmless. A good man is not a harmless man, but a good man is a man who is dangerous but does not use or exercise his ability to harm. So a man has to be wide awake and armed at all times. And that's who we are. So when a woman goes and pulls fingers at a man who is armed, by virtue of being a man, we are armed, we're dangerous, such situations can occur. And I think it's good for balance to be brought here. Aldrin also lost his temper. He needs to just move along as well. When people pull middle fingers, I'm glad I don't drive. I haven't had a car in years. I moved to town, and since living in town, I've been a house mouse who does not need to go anywhere much. And my finances have meant that I haven't been able to afford a car. But I remember this when I was driving though. I remember the stress and anxiety, the anger on the road, the rage. And it's surprising, this rage in South Africa, because having traveled to China and driven as a passenger in hailed cars, buses, the amount of traffic in that country, in the province of Guangdong and Shenzhen, is crazy. But I noted that the Chinese people are incredibly patient. They have it as a culture. It's like somebody hit them with a spell of non-violence. They are angry, they hoot, yes, but they never shout. They hardly do that. They don't work themselves up inside the vehicle. It seems odd to lose your temper. Your passenger would be surprised that why you have to become animated yourself, because that other person can't actually hear you. So they hoot a lot, they make noise with their hooters, but they don't react. And so Aldrin's behavior there does look strange and unnecessary. I know of maturity levels that he can elevate towards for him not to react like that. But let's carry on now. We're listening to his history.
He says, explaining that he beat up another girlfriend at a later stage, he says the incident took place because he felt like she disrespected him. You see a pattern that's going on over here? So he beat up and assaulted previous girlfriends because he felt disrespected. And in this road rage incident, what happened was this lady showed him the middle finger, because what actually happened, from what she said, is she was driving in a lane, the taxi suddenly stopped and she swerved out into a different lane to avoid hitting the taxi. Aldrin was in that lane and nearly drove into the back of her. And instead of seeing what actually happened and she was doing it to avoid an accident, he then lost his mind, started hooting at her. And I'm assuming this is where she threw the middle finger, because she was like, I tried to avoid an accident.
And she should not have done that. What kind of reaction is pulling a middle finger? Hey, South Africans are so toxic, man. There's a need for Jesus here.
And then, as you can see from the video, he cut her off, he actually hit her with his tire, as you could see from the marks on the rear end of her car. And then he cut in front of her, and then he accosted her, and then eventually assaulted her, as you can see on the video.
Pushed
her.
I
would love for Newsroom Africa to come out with a statement, because clearly Aldrin Sampear has got a temperament issue, and he also has an issue with women that stand up against him. So this is quite controversial, considering that he's got a past. And now, once he said, no, I've grown up, I don't do those things anymore. Here we are in 2025, and he just did the exact same thing to a random stranger that stood up to him. And I'm not sure if he's got this egotistical thing where if a woman speaks out against him, then he feels emboldened to do what he wants to do.
It might be a man thing, but men ought to restrain themselves. Good men are dangerous men who do not exercise their danger, who protect using their danger and their weapons.
It is shameful, it is shameless, and it is belittling and insulting to the people that follow the news to have to listen to Aldrin Sampear tell them what the news is when he has this history that he has with women, especially in a country where femicide is a massive issue and where sexual assault and gender-based violent assault happens every few seconds in South Africa. So I think, considering his past, I'm not sure how he even made it onto radio and TV. And yet, he's continuing with that.
He's talented, man. How?
With that behavior. So I don't foresee that he would remain in that position, considering what has transpired here. But hey, once again, it's always the ones that are critical of others and the ones that are so vocal, especially when they have a platform like Newsroom Africa, to belittle and insult other people, that they always have the biggest skeletons in their own closet. So Aldrin Sampear, you deserve every single thing that is coming your way. And the reason I say that is because you were never ever fair in your assessments when you had to report on people, and you never left anything open for interpretation. You always gave your opinion, and it's so nice for me to be able to return the favor to you after what you said about me. But besides that, there's video evidence of you assaulting this lady, and then you admitting previously that you assaulted your previous girlfriends. Newsroom Africa, get rid of this piece of shit individual that lays hands on women. It is completely unacceptable. And the fact that you want to promote individuals that have got pasts like this and is continuing to do these things in the present. What next? At what point will you eventually fire him? Does it need something more severe? Let's see. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to smash that like button.
Oh my, oh my, oh my. Piece of shit individual. Now let's quickly just jump into the Daily Maverick. Very short video. I won't speak over this one. Find out what is up with these attacks on South African journalists. The Republic of South Africa is in apparent need of a reminder of what happens when American interests are marginalized.
What do the US politicians who are anti-South Africa have in common? There's a handful of politicians in the US Congress who have been most vocal about pushing for South Africa to be sanctioned by the Trump administration. When you dig a little deeper, you'll find most of them have something in common: the source of their funding. I'm Rebecca Davis, senior journalist for Daily Maverick. In February this year, 4 US congressmen wrote to President Trump urging him to do something about South Africa, specifically asking him to scrap AGOA, the trade agreement which gives South African exporters the right to sell their goods to America at a more attractive price than other countries can. The letter used extremely aggressive language to get its point across, accusing the ANC of running an ethno-nationalist gangster regime. It cited a number of sins on the part of the South African government: its supposedly destructive land reform program, its failure to manage gender-based violence, but also its, quote, vendetta against the state of Israel. It highlighted South Africa's approach to the International Court of Justice to have Israel's actions in Gaza labeled as genocide, and called that a baseless claim. It also accused the South African government of acting as Hamas propagandists for decades.
So is this a reaction to South Africa taking Israel to the ICJ? Is this a response not only from America, but also from Israel, from them together? Let's listen.
Now, the 4 congressmen who signed this letter were all Republicans. Andy Ogles is a Republican from Tennessee. Tom Tiffany is a Republican from Wisconsin. Joe Wilson is a Republican from South Carolina. And Don Bacon is a Republican from Nebraska. But that's not the only thing they have in common. A website called OpenSecrets.org tracks money in American politics, who's giving it and who's receiving it. Now, the amount of money flowing around American politics is hard to wrap your head around for non-Americans. And the main reason for this is a famous Supreme Court ruling in 2010 known as the Citizens United ruling, which basically removed all restrictions on how much money corporations and special interest groups can spend on elections. In most countries, there are strict limits on how much money you can donate to one candidate or campaign, because of how badly it skews politics in favor of whoever has the largest wallet. In South Africa, for instance, you cannot donate more than 15 million rand to one party in a single calendar year.
So you can't push too aggressive an agenda. You have to be limited.
But ever since the Citizens United ruling in the States, it has been legal to spend unlimited amounts of money supporting candidates and their campaigns. And around 90% of US electoral races are simply won by whoever spends the most money.
Money.
On the website Open Secrets, you can see who the biggest donors are to individual senators or members of the House of Representatives. So I took a look at what has been going on with the campaign financing of these 4 congressmen who are pushing an anti-South African agenda. Let's start with Don Bacon. Don Bacon, it turns out, received the highest amount of money in the most recent financial year from which there are records from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC, which we'll come back to. He received almost $700,000 from that body, which is close to 13 million rand.
You heard that? America, Israel, yeah. Public affairs What? What's the C? Let's continue.
The top industry from which Don Bacon received funding is listed as pro-Israel. Let's go to another one of the four, Joe Wilson. Joe Wilson received the highest amount of money in the most recent financial year from which there are records from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, or AIPAC. He
Yes.
received $126,350, or about $2.3 million. That leaves Tom Tiffany and Andy Ogles. Tom Tiffany's most recent biggest donor was something called Incredible Bank, which doesn't fit our pattern. But if you look at Tom Tiffany's funding from the previous cycle, you'll find his biggest donor was AIPAC, to the tune of almost $34,000, or around 626,000 Rand.
So, he's been getting that money. He's their contractor.
The last congressman to sign that letter was Andy Ogles. AIPAC is not listed as one of Ogles' donors in the last campaign cycle, and Open Secrets doesn't have records for his previous round of financing. But AIPAC lists Ogles as one of its featured candidates on its own website, so it's fair to assume that it has donated money to his campaign before.
So that's another one whose mouth is being contracted. Are you starting to see the political influence grift? There's a grift that lies underneath the things we see on YouTube, beyond just the monetization and making noise about race until the end of days. It's quite a lucrative thing. I don't see any direct issue with it. Racism is sin. And if Renaldo is pointing it out, then he's a minister serving the Lord. And the Lord will judge if he was pointing it out to rid people of it or to promote them to join the sin. So me as a mortal, I can't judge those who do this kind of YouTube. But it's important to realize that it's bigger than that YouTube grift as I've defined it so far. There's actual world powers behind the things that we are seeing. This documentary has 2 minutes to go. Let's let it go and finish.
So let's sum it up. Of the 4 congressmen who signed a letter calling for South Africa to face punitive action, 3 out of 4 had the same biggest single donor at some point since 2022, the
Yes.
American Israel Public Affairs Committee. And the 4th has also received funding from AIPAC. But here's where it gets tricky. AIPAC funds hundreds of American politicians each year. To be specific, in 2024, they supported 361 candidates from both the Republican and Democratic parties to the tune of more than $53 million.
So the Israelis are pretty much in US Congress, Parliament, what is it? Whatever the term.
They're open about why they do this. They say on their website that they are, quote, transparently tying contributions to candidates' support for Israel. They also say, quote, we base our support only on a candidate's support for the US-Israel relationship. In other words, they are a single-issue funding group, and that issue is support for Israel. Support Israel, and you can expect AIPAC to fund your campaign.
So what about young South Africans who are unemployed, who want to get some quick money? Is there a WhatsApp number they can send a message to and say, yo, I'm willing to say support Israel and America no matter what. I'm hungry. Want to get this money? I can do it on YouTube. Is it Sama Sambit? Is it Katlego? Is it Renaldo Gouws? Is it Colonel Chris Wyatt? Is it RP Ma? Is it Joe Emilio? Is it Gareth Cliff and Thomas Mabaso from 360 Experience? Who can get on this gig if not these high people? Can anybody else get in?
So the 4 congressmen who received funding from AIPAC and went on to propose legislation punishing South Africa in part for its stance on Israel aren't even exceptional. They are 4 among 361 others last year cashing in from AIPAC.
Cashing in.
But it is noticeable that 3 of the 4 had AIPAC as their single biggest donor at some point since 2022.
Big Daddy.
In other words, they might have a proportionately bigger reason to push hard on pro-Israel policies.
Yeah.
It's important to say that none of this is improper in terms of US politics. Anyone is allowed to set up fundraising vehicles for any issue and use that to channel money to politicians. But if you have been wondering why US politicians across the political spectrum seem to be so reluctant to take a stance against Israel, it's important, as so often in politics, to follow the money.
Aha. So even South African politicians who are keeping quiet, being mum about what is happening, they may as well be on the payroll. So politicians, YouTubers, like, guys, are we really living our own lives? Why does it seem like the Matrix, we are incredibly deep in it? What's that Leonardo DiCaprio movie where they spin a top? Is it Inception? Yeah. and they are able to put someone in a dream state 3 levels deep. The person will be in a dream and believe that they've woken up and they're in reality and they are participating, not knowing that they are inside a set that has been dressed by someone and they are an actor. They are a subject in this simulation. And when you wake up to that realization, you find that you're in yet another dream. You're still on set and there are people watching you all the time. Oh my goodness. Hope you like, hope you share, hope you comment and you subscribe. I'll be seeing you in the next one.